Okay. So after 8 years, somebody finally called me out on not uploading to this channel whatsoever. Um, to the 610 people that are subscribed to everything that I did 8 years ago, I apologize. There's probably a lot more stuff that I could have been talking about and showing you. And this video essentially is just a kind of an update video as to what's been going on for the last 8 years, as well as actually trying to answer some of those questions which were coming in as little as like 6 months ago. Um, yeah, I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm still Ollie Cook slash Many Motion, I guess you could say. Um, and yeah, I guess a lot has been going on, and I just wanted to take the time to kind of like talk you through what my journey's been like since I made those videos about iPySoft, or doing all those kind of like R&D videos and stuff like that, because it's been a journey, and I don't know if you'd be expecting me to end up where I actually did end up. I'm still very firmly in motion capture, so that's something to look forward to. But I've also employed the the free labor of a friend here on Discord in order to try and facilitate this via Mike Woods, who you can probably see in one of the, I'm not even sure which side it is, one of the little chat boxes there. So, Mike, if you wanted to say hello to everybody out there.
So hello to Oliver Cook's audience.
There you go. Um, so I spoke to Mike about this today. So this is very, very kind of ad-libbed, and it's very, very kind of turn on the machines and get this thing going. Um, but yeah, this actually coincides with a very interesting day in my life, which is 3 years at my current employment, which I guess I'll talk a bit about in a little while. But in order to facilitate this, and in order for this to seem a little bit less like, I guess it's just me kind of talking waffle and stuff like that. I actually said to Mike, well, maybe it would be a good kind of structure to kind of like, get this video started, and then for him to kind of ask me some questions about what's been happening over the last 8 years. So it feels a little bit more natural. I don't know what Mike's necessarily going to ask me. There will be some points that I'll probably want to bring up as well. But yeah, just so it seems a little bit less forced. And as I say, I don't know what Mike is going to ask me at all. I know kind of generally, it's got to be over the last 8 years, right? I think it's been 8 years. 2013. Yeah, it's 7, somewhere around there, 7, 8 years. The reason I say 8 years, though, is because somebody on YouTube, I found a comment that came up recently, because I don't necessarily check the emails for that account. There's been, as I say, there's been a lot that's been going on, and somebody had made a comment that just said, "And 8 years later, dot dot dot." So yeah, 3 years in my current employment, 7 to 8 years after me actually uploading anything. Yeah, what's been happening? And I guess, Mike, if you've got a good question to start with, let's just get the ball rolling.
Well, I don't know. I thought we'd just start with what people have said on YouTube more than anything else, to be honest.
Okay,
Um,
whichever way you want to
yeah,
go about
this
it.
I think it's probably going to be easiest because well, there are many things that have happened over the last 8 years.
Well,
Um,
I guess a good
people
way,
on
I was going to say, I guess a good way that we could actually go about doing this is if I just give at least the cliff notes, because maybe that in itself is kind of an interesting arc for us to get into those
well,
conversations.
you could go I don't know, you could do some personal history and basically talk to us about what potentially could have happened after university.
I guess so, yeah. So, to put it into context, all of the videos that I put up about iPySoft and FaceShift and all of that testing and all of that R&D stuff was all my final year project for university in games design. And yeah, I wanted to kind of like, put my ideas out there and put out my testing and stuff like that. And it seemed like a really big waste if I was going to be doing all of that stuff to not actually share any of that with anybody. And I guess to some degree, that's what I'm kind of doing right now is I'm trying to share a little bit more about what's been going on and the stuff that I've kind of figured out over the years. Um, but oh, and the other thing as well, we know that Mike sounds like a smooth DJ right now, and I sound like complete ass. So you know, we'll talk about this more towards the end. But if we do decide to do more videos like this, or at least better produced videos like this, a little less ad libbed, you know, I would sort out stuff like this. But it's whether people actually want it. So what happened after that project? Well, that project got me a first, which is awesome. And yeah, I learned a hell of a lot. iPiSoft was a very powerful piece of software. So was PhaseShift at the time before it kind of got bought out by Apple, and then that kind of technology started to get used in things like the iPhone, and then in Star Wars and stuff like that. But what happened directly after that point? Well, um, I finished off my degree. We had this show called GradX where you show off your work and stuff like that. And I remember very vividly that when I had my display and everything, I had a lot of other students coming up to me saying things like, oh, this is amazing, this is great, like, this is fantastic. And a couple of people did come up to me and said, like, I wouldn't be surprised if you took this one. I wouldn't be surprised if you took GradX. Um, yeah, I didn't. I didn't even place, to be honest. But I did get a lot of kind of attention, and a lot of people kind of were taking photos of my stall and stuff like that, and photos of all of the stuff. I even had one business guy kind of come up to me and ask me like one or two cursory questions, take a photo, and then I heard him audibly say like, "Oh, I'm going to take this back to the guys," which, when you're a student looking for work, that's kind of a disheartening thing, right? But straight after university, um, the um, the leader of the course of games design approached me and asked me if I would like to do some lecturing. And I jumped at the opportunity. It seemed like a really kind of good professional move to make at the time. Educating other people. I was hot on off the presses of kind of like doing all of my R&D work and stuff like that. So it seemed like a pretty good thing to do. Um, so I did lecturing at Staffs with Mike. For I think it was like 3 or 4 years, 3 to 4 years, somewhere around there. And over those 3 to 4 years, I took on more modules, created a couple of modules, so like UI and stuff like that, and always kind of had my finger in animation, and definitely was always doing stuff with motion capture. Um, but never really had the time to fully explore that again. Really, being a lecturer and having to juggle that many modules is quite a taxing task as it is. So there wasn't necessarily that much time to be messing around with stuff and to be, dare I say, kind of learning in the way that I wanted to learn, which was like getting down and dirty with stuff and tinkering around with things and making things work that shouldn't work and stuff like that. And that's what iPiSoft and all of that, PhaseShift and using Connects and PlayStation Eyes felt like to me. It felt like you had the power at the end of your fingertips, and when it started to work, like, oh, you felt amazing. You felt awesome. Um, so yeah, I did lecturing for 3 to 4 years about, and towards the end of that third or fourth year, I can't quite remember. It was like, I think it's like on LinkedIn, I think it says like 3 years, 10 months or something like that. But as I came towards the end of that, um, I started to get a little bit burnt out on the job, let's say, and I really needed to secure a wage. I was getting older, and I really needed to secure that wage. So I started to look out, and I started to look for different positions. In the interim, though, I started doing work for the science department in Staffordshire University, doing some animation stuff. They were looking for a technical animator or an animation technician. I can't remember how they worded it. And basically, they had this concept for the shoe sole, which was like it reduced shear as it kind of like went across the floor, basically. And yeah, they needed somebody to animate this to deliver like a final kind of like infomercial product, and I did that. And that was awesome, and that was like a great little bit of experience. But towards the end of that, I started to send out CVs to places, and yeah, a couple of the places that I sent CVs out to, I think places like, oh God, it's been a while since since I've thought about this, but maybe like Splash Damage, I think, Dambuster, Eurocom, I think at the no Eurocom wasn't there at the time. Eurocom was gone. Um, Centroid as well was another one. I went to motion capture houses. I went to games places, and I got a offer from Cubic Motion pretty early on, which at the time, actually no, I'm getting this mixed up now. I had an offer from Cubic Motion at the same time that I was being offered the lectureship at Staffs University, and because Staffs University was on my doorstep, as opposed to Cubic Motion, which was in Manchester at the time, I decided to go with Staffs University for the pay and for just the fact that it was so close and the fact that I knew kind of all the lecturers and I had a somewhat of a good working relationship with a lot of them. So I turned down Cubic Motion back then, but 3 years, 10 months, 4 years after the fact, I actually went back to Cubic Motion and asked them if they had any positions, and they said, I think at that point, I think we were in talks, so they said maybe not, I can't remember. Regardless, I decided to apply for a position at Cloud Imperium Games, working on Star Citizen. And originally, the position that I went for was one of the only positions that they had up on the site at the time in Derby, which is the closest place to me, was a facial animator. And yeah, I applied for a facial animator. They said we'd love to meet you. They asked me to come down. Um, I got taken around the office. I got to meet everyone, and that's when I went to a separate building from the main office called, well, we called it this, in time, but what I will refer to as the Cube. Now, at the time, I thought I was going for like a facial animation position. I didn't think anything else was available. And the person who was taking me around, John Jones at the time, said, "Oh, we'll go down and see the mocap boys." And I was like, "Mocap? Like, okay." So I went into the Cube, and it was three guys in a very hot room in the middle of summer with all the windows open. It didn't seem to be doing a goddamn thing. Um, and yeah, within about the first, 15, 20 minutes of meeting those guys, I kind of realized that that's where I wanted to be. They were kind of, yeah, my kind of people. They were just friendly and nice, and a big influence for my career from that point in order to project me and propel me forward is a gentleman called Kyle Moody, who worked at Eurocom. He's worked at Dambuster, he's worked at Rockstar, he worked at Cloud, and then he is now working at Playground Games. Very intelligent person. He certainly knows his stuff, and he taught me a hell of a lot, even if all of the stuff that I currently know, and was able to then build up my knowledge from that point. So yeah, I owe a lot to Kyle, definitely. And in that first kind of 15, 20-minute kind of meeting, we kind of figured out that, like, yeah, maybe mocap is something or a place that I would like to be. Give it a week or so, I get another message saying like, "Hey, would you like to come down and come and do a test?" And I did, and that's when one of the people that was in the office the first time said, um, "Hey, the first time that you came in and everything, I swore that I knew your face from somewhere." And I was like, "Oh, okay, like I don't know you at all." And he said, no, it's I figured it out. What it was is, and this is where we come not full circle, but we go back a little bit. This is he said, I referenced your dissertation for markerless motion capture solutions in my dissertation, in his dissertation. Um, and that was all that stuff that I was doing with that videos and putting them online. And he said that he'd seen them and stuff like that. So that was kind of like oh wow, okay, that's awesome. And that kind of established, I think it kind of established a knowledge base of what I knew at that point and what kind of things I could bring to the table. Fast forward 3 years at Cloud Imperium Games, where I've been able to, sorry, I guess it's worth saying that my initial position at Cloud Imperium Games was a motion editor. I came in at a mid-level. And yeah, fast forward 3 years to today. I am now a senior motion capture technician. I think that's what we're calling ourselves these days at Cloud Imperium Games. I've had the chance to work with some fantastic people, some great talent. I've been involved in trailers, gameplay, cinematics. I've been on set for all of that stuff, and I've seen how all of that stuff kind of gets done. And I've now, I'd say, in the last kind of like 6 months to a year or so, moved into a position where I'm able to lead more people in the team. Under a great lead that we've got now, Ross Richards, who incidentally came from Centroid. Um, and my current roles, I would say, inside of CIG are I did a lot of solving at the very beginning. I did a lot of kind of learning the process from Kyle because I had come from a very educated background. And the things with education is what I say is, with education, at least you can kind of try something. If it doesn't work, you can shelf it, and that's it. When you're in the industry, or somewhat when you're a lecturer as well, but certainly when you're in the industry and you've got a product to consider, or at least an update to consider to a product, you can't just shelf something that doesn't quite work. If someone says, you've got to get this thing done, you've got to find a way to get that stuff done. And, you guys being able to see the videos that I'd put out before, that's definitely the kind of person I am. It's very much like, right, we have to figure this out. There's no other way of going about it. We have to do it. So yeah, my current roles at CIG are, well, my current roles are I'm pretty much overlooking the pipeline that we actually use at CIG for motion capture, and that goes all the way from when we're on the stage, so building tools in Python for stage stuff, through the tracking process and the solving process, and building up solving pipelines, as well as doing some rigging for motion capture rigs and stuff like that, and Mobu rigs, as well as post as well, kind of doing, how can I put it, like sanity checks on data and doing reviews for other members of the team and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I currently sit. As I say, I've been 3 years in the job now, and I've learned an absolute crap ton. That's a good way of putting it. What I thought at the end of university, I guess I thought I knew a fair bit, but I didn't quite know what I wanted to know. I guess that's the good way of putting it. And then when I became a lecturer, I kind of had to move away from some of that stuff, and kind of had to spread my my attention to all of these different areas. And then I was able to refocus again and hone in on motion capture, and specifically look at that for the last 3 years. And yeah, I can honestly say that, at the back end of university, I certainly knew something, but now I know a hell of a lot. Um, I know a hell of a lot more than I used to, and a lot of that is down to people like Kyle Moody. It's down to people like Ross Richards as well, just telling me, giving me anecdotes about things that happened at Centroid, and hearing those stories secondhand, and being able to apply that to the things that you're doing, as well as just being given the day-to-day awesome challenges that CIG gives you. Obviously, not going to talk too much about pipeline stuff. I can't. I also can't talk about some of the niche things that we've done necessarily, but yeah, what I can talk about is what that industry, or what the industry and CIG has done for me, and it's basically propelled me forward from being a tinkerer, sitting, let's call it a bedroom tinkerer, let's say, sitting kind of like figuring things out, and I've only got myself to answer to having now in my position, people asking me to do things, and me still being able to tinker, but to tinker in a professional capacity, where I can ask for time to do things. I can ask for, okay, well, if you want this tool making, it's going to take this long, and we need to get feedback, and then we need to iterate on that, and we need to da 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 da. Um, it's also, and again, I'm not going to go into any of the pipeline stuff, but it's a very it's very close to a very pivotal day in my career, as well as 2 days ago was the day that I released my first ever, let's say um, let's say company wide tool let's say. I've made a company-wide app, which is something that a lot of different people are going to be using in the motion capture sector that we kind of operate in. And that was quite a pivotal day for me. So 3 years, um, releasing tools to the company as a whole now. I've done a crap ton of Motion Builder pipeline work as well. So working with Motion Builder to create specific pipeline tools and stuff like that. But ultimately, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. So yeah, that I guess that's kind of the springboard as to or at least the I guess that's kind of the through line from where you saw me 8 years ago, kind of saying like, "Hey, you want to wear two-tone T-shirts because that's going to get different limbs really good," to now where I'm on set with a lot of professional people. I'm on set with directors. I'm on set with, talent as well. Having to learn the ropes. Back then at least having to learn the ropes as to how to actually treat talent and treat people professionally and stuff like that. And yeah, I've learned a lot of personal lessons and I've learned a lot of professional lessons, and I've also learned a lot about I guess who I am as a person and who I am as an employee at Cloud Imperium, as well as who I am as a worker. Um, and yeah, if I can summarize that into one statement at the end there, it would be something like, I'm still the tinkerer I was 8 years ago. It's just that now it's a little bit more professional and there's a little bit more on the line, which for me is awesome because I absolutely love it. And I guess that's the update, unless you think I've missed anything out, Mike, or you think I need to go into anything that people would want to know.
I don't necessarily think so. I think you, well, I don't know. Obviously, I only know a small portion of your story anyway. But
Mike's lying. He's been there for the whole thing.
well, I've been present. Good days and bad days, you know.
Yeah.
I suppose the main thing really is, I mean, we can have a look at some of the YouTube comments and stuff in a little while, but I suppose although you've transitioned into what is effectively a more professional environment, certain things potentially have not changed all that much with what you're doing, or at least the things that you were doing then are very similar to the things you're doing now.
I guess in a broad sense, yes. In a technical sense, it's very different to be going from 4 PlayStation Eyes and trying to figure that out to high-end professional equipment, let's say.
Yeah, but that's work though, isn't it? That's not what you've been tinkering around with recently.
Oh, okay. So if we're talking outside of work, then yeah. So, to say that I wasn't, or to say that the second I got into the industry and started working at CIG was the day that I stopped giving a crap about iPySoft or any of that stuff, is no, not at all. Yeah, I've kind of kept a very loose finger on the pulse, and granted, over the last couple of months, I have been digging deeper and deeper and deeper back into that kind of stuff, and yeah, about, oh God, when was it, Mike? Maybe 2 months ago or a month ago, I decided to fish out all of my old equipment. I got my old license for iPi back, which is like version 2.0, which is like, um, and yeah, started tinkering again and got a lot of that stuff back and working, and it still does work really well. Now being able to appreciate what that stuff can do from a position now where I'm actually working with a lot of high-end, high-level equipment, and even seeing R&D units for the first time and stuff like that, which is very exciting. And just being able to, as I say, create pipelines, which then mean that, well, I want to be able to do this, so I need to buy this particular piece of hardware, or small things which, like, back in the day, I wouldn't have necessarily cared about, which is like how to say, like, frame perfectly, line up a facial animation with a body animation and stuff like that, which is all the kind of stuff that I can bring that mentality to that old school kind of tinkery kind of IPySoft phase shift kind of way. So things like time code, and things like actually creating a system that all of this stuff lines up, so someone can make selects from it and stuff like that. But fundamentally, yeah, you are correct. From what I've seen, from delving back into that stuff and being able to look at like what IPySoft is doing nowadays, not a lot has necessarily changed. The big one, obviously, was PhaseShift being bought out. Now, thankfully, I still had my install of PhaseShift on my machine, and if I can get it out very quickly, because it is kind of in front of me. If you give me a second. Here is the box. Here are all of the goodies. So, you got the mag light for everything you're going to need there. I've got my PlayStation Eye cameras. I have a drawer over there which has 2 original Kinects and 2 Kinect 2s in there. Not that I have a full license to do anything with that stuff, but more importantly, if you do have an install of PhaseShift lying around, one of the things that I recently got to work is the RealSense SR305, and Mike's seen the results from this. I've given the results of this to a facial animator inside of CIG in order to mess around with and to do some tests with, and the results are phenomenal in comparison to using a Kinect with PhaseShift. Being able to get the RealSense working, as far as I could tell, that was the best camera that you get working with PhaseShift from the latest release that they had out. So yeah, that's been really fun to do, and don't know if we'll there should be like a video or a GIF that we can just put up at the side at the moment. But one of the things that we utilized all of this stuff to do, and everything that you'll probably see on screen in a second is all generated from this stuff, is myself and Mike and a couple of other people, a great person at CIG called Oliver Satterley, who is a facial animator. We essentially pooled all of our efforts together. Oh, and sorry, Dean Story as well, who did some of the substance work and textures and stuff like that. We all pooled our kind of collective efforts together, and we essentially made a digidouble of me. And we could get facial animation on it using, the RealSense. We got the animation from using 4 PlayStation Eyes, nothing more necessarily. But there are some things more so that I would like to start trying out now, if I'm being honest. I'd love to be able to try a 6 PSI setup. Never really got around to being able to do that and being able to figure out how to properly do that. I've got some Kinect 2s over there that I would love to be able to do some dual Kinect kind of animation with. The problem being is, and I don't know if this is just me being me, but like I always want to do it in conjunction with something. When I did the IPy tutorial videos, and I did the setup and the calibration and stuff like that, one of the videos has got like 33,000 views on it. If you go to the IPySoft website, my tutorials are there. My deconstructions, my calibration, clothes, all of that kind of stuff, they're still on that website as a resource. And again, I'm that kind of guy that likes to give and take. Let's find a happy medium in the a space in the middle where we can both benefit from this. And one of the things that I've been considering doing for a little while now is asking IPySoft if I can revisit all of this stuff with an updated license with the current version of IPySoft, and be able to again do like another big set of tutorial videos maybe, which kind of highlights how good this piece of software really is, because it is. Highlight how good this piece of software is, as well as kind of being able to give back to the community again, using a lot of the knowledge which I've got from CIG. And I don't mean that in the sense of like trade secrets that we only do or something like that. No, but being able to do certain things with Motion Builder and packages and stuff like that in order to try and create a nicer workflow for people to use that stuff. So yeah, I would argue that whilst my mentality's changed. Not a lot has changed from a technical or hardware perspective. That's a good way of putting it.
And I suppose, well, I don't know. It's pretty much exactly the same, I guess, but it's applied in a slightly different way.
It's the way you look at
Obviously,
it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, obviously, you've had some problems largely with software more than anything else.
Mm.
That ironically, that 8 years ago is not that dissimilar from today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and let's just talk about FaceShift. Because obviously FaceShift was a fantastic product at the time, and if you're lucky to have had an install, or if you're lucky to have been able to find an executable of that stuff, um, then even then, you have to figure out ways of working with that stuff. Which, yeah, thankfully, as I say, with the knowledge that I have gained over the past 3 years in CIG and being able to kind of like tinker around with stuff, um, yeah, there's totally ways of working with that stuff still. But yeah, there software is software. I don't want to talk too much about that stuff, but there hasn't been anything, at least that I can see, there hasn't been anything which has come close to FaceShift really, and the trajectory that that piece of software had, like Jesus, like whoa, that if that didn't get bought out by Apple, I would love to see where that stuff is now. I would love to see where that stuff is now. But yeah, ultimately, it is what it is. There are people strapping iPhones to the ends of, you know, baseball helmets and stuff like that these days, and extracting the data from iPhones and stuff like that, which is all well and good for like indie studios and stuff. And that's exactly what all of the initial research and development that I did was aimed at. It was all for independent studios. If you don't have money but you want to do mocap, this is a way that you can do it. Um, and thankfully, like um, I've had opportunities over the years to kind of get into different spaces and see different setups. And the space that I'm in right now is I'm in an attic at the moment, by the way, but still it's an open attic, which could definitely have a couple of PlayStation Eyes set up, and I would love to be able to do, as I say, even some smaller scale testing that isn't as large as what I did um, at the university for my dissertation, because ultimately not everyone's got an 8 meter by 8 meter room, right, which has nothing in it. uh, Getting on to the point again of wanting to be able to test the Connect 2s and being able to kind of use a half circle method with that. um, but yeah, I did some for the stuff that has probably been shown on screen already. That stuff was done in a very small volume. Let's say maybe 1.2 meters by a meter or two, something like that. And then some good trickery inside of Motion Builder and being able to be able to loop stuff properly and do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but yeah, software is software. If anybody wants to, work on a depth slash RGB based, um, you know, facial tracking software. I'm not sure what the monopoly on that is at the moment, or not the monopoly, but what the patent is, or whether that's even legal or something. But yeah, I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts. That's for sure.
Well, it would be nice to have a range of options more than anything else. I
Mm,
mean, if you're thinking about supporting a community, it's going to be very difficult to support a community when there isn't really software to have a community around, I
yeah,
suppose.
and this comes back to me actually biting the bullet and asking the correct people and sending out the correct emails. But to be honest, for me, there's nothing more telling than community asking for stuff. And let's just say that something like this video got some comments below it that were kind of like, yes, we want this, yes, we want this. Then that's just more clout, right? That's more to take to the bank, and more to be able to say, look, I'm back after 8 years or whatever. These videos are racking up views, and I've still had questions coming in from the past, like, you know it's 5 months, 8 months. I see them periodically, and yeah, actually sitting down and being able to readdress the community and actually be able to help with all of this stuff again. Hopefully, it's come across as to why I've not been here. I've had a lot of stuff to kind of get through, and I've had to sort out my own professional career as well. But yeah, I'm definitely at a point where I'm ready to kind of bite the bullet on this stuff again and kind of get stuck back in. I think it'd be fun.